I hadn't seen my former spouse in 4 years. She entered the cafe as stunning as ever and unchanged. She looked at me when she sat down and told me why she had come to visit me today. I had no idea what to say. Ultimately, I never would have guessed that this would occur. Please, there may still be hope. Would you please give it another go? Her statements, implying that we still could have time, struck a profound chord with me. Really, could we make it in time? I was unsure if it would be effective to try again. But I'd always felt bad about leaving my ex-wife because I couldn't relate to her emotions. If I pushed her away right now, I knew I would regret it. All right, let's try it out together. And so, for the two of us, the clock began to run again. Kevin is my name. I'm 28 years old. Since completing my degree, I have been employed in a securities firm. University. This is a high-level finance position. At first, the strain was so intense that I believed concerning giving up repeatedly. But I couldn't stop doubting myself and wondered if this was all I was capable of. Much and inexplicably continued. I've now reached the status of ace in the company at the age of 28. After I had progressed thus far, my goals for my career keep expanding. I desire to raise my game even more and achieve elevated. I wanted to show everyone that I'm more capable than they realize. Even if I was not at work, I started to consider it. My time with Hannah, the woman I married at the age of 26, was progressively dwindling. Hannah, a stay-at-home mom, did all of the housework flawlessly, offering well-balanced dinners. She made a fantastic wife. We had been friends for over 20 years, dating back to our early school years. Her dad worked as a generous person in my life. At a nearby gym, Hannah's father used to instruct kids in martial arts. I possessed. Since I was in elementary school, I had been going there. When I was in the 3rd grade, my own father passed away. My parents had grown apart from us. Family. So after that, it was only my mother and me. Yet, because of the frequent bed rest, my mother. Shock of my father's passing. I had no family to turn to when I was younger, so I didn't know. Feel totally bewildered and unsure of what to do. That is when George, Hannah's father, stepped in to save the day. George was defeated, separating from his wife and parenting Hannah alone. He knew that perhaps it was the reason. How the recently single mother of mine would be experiencing. He gave me an explanation of this, in a kind tone. Through his calls to the insurance provider, my mother's work, and even asking them to assist with some administrative tasks with the staff at the municipal office. He also took me in and allowed me to stay at his house on a few occasions. Regards, George. Taking over, my mom was able to heal by taking it easy. Hannah no longer identified as the instructor's daughter at that point. Hannah. And I started to think of George as family. When I went to George as an adult and informed him that I was ecstatic to want to marry Hannah. Kevin, you've always been regarded as my son. I'm overjoyed that you will always be my son. Right now. I doubt I'll ever forget the look on his face when he told me this. My donor was meant to have blessed me with a blissful marriage, but I ended up separating from Hannah. I was entirely to blame. Hannah always worried about my well-being and made an effort to treasure our time spent together. Are you okay? Would you please take a break? The next time, how about we go to a spa together? Let's unwind, she would remark. When we first got married, I believed that we were kind childhood friends, but I eventually discovered Hannah's concern for me irritates me. I had such a strong desire to be successful at work that I was assuming too much from her generosity. Stop talking. You could not comprehend. For me, this is a critical moment. Please don't disturb me. I reiterated. Such items. I would not have noticed if Hannah had not appeared hurt. I hadn't really looked at Hannah in a while because I was always being critical of her. Remarks directed to her. Hannah then told me one day, I want to spend this weekend with you. Today is a significant day. Please leave early and return home. It's about time we had a conversation about Dad. Could I elaborate for you? Then, I'll have it. I'm going home early. I just said, got it, without checking to see what she meant when she said it was important. At that point, day, or inquiring as to George's whereabouts. I guess I had formed a negative habit of heedlessly answering Hannah's remarks. So I answered Hannah nonchalantly, as I usually did. As it happened, I neglected to keep my word and worked extra hours over the weekend. I simply wrote Hannah one message, saying, working late, not in the mood for dinner. I had entirely forgotten about the pledge, so I didn't even bring it up. Usually Hannah responds immediately, but not this time. That didn't concern me either. My entire attention was on the task in hand. Hannah was gone when I got back home after midnight. A brief message and finalized divorce documentation were discovered abandoned. I wanted more family time, but your job is your important thing, the note said. I hope your work goes well. Kindly attend to your health. After reading it, I at last recalled my commitment to Hannah. I saw that it was my birthday when I looked at the calendar. Hannah believed that my birthday was an important day, not our anniversary or Hannah's own birthday. Although Hannah was born a month ahead of me, I don't recall ever having a birthday celebration. Hannah was going to honor a spouse whose wife's birthday he was unable to even recall. Surveying the house, Hannah's possessions were nowhere to be found. She moved everything out in one day, which surprised me. Maybe Hannah had been expecting me to break the pledge and had been progressively removing her items from the house, but I was completely unaware of this. Hannah had already left with her belongings before I realized what had happened. Hannah made no alimony requests. She must have had a difficult marriage. Hannah made no demands of me, but I think she had the right to ask for it. Rather, she departed from the house and left me a message containing words of worry. I was unable to pursue Hannah. The following day, I filed the divorce documents that I had completed. Ultimately, I was unable to hear what George intended to say, the conversation Hannah had brought up. I spoke with George on the phone about the divorce. I was too scared to confront him. I said I was sorry for not looking after Hannah. George only answered, I understand, without seeming upset or dejected. We didn't talk again after the call ended. I instantly lost both my donor and my wife as a result of my self-centered acts. I was in pieces following the divorce. I lost all motivation, began to skip work, and ultimately quit. Since work had taken up all of my life, I was left with nothing. I made a few attempts to find employment, but I never lasted very long since I would often miss work. I'm currently barely scraping by on day labor. This is how I've been living for the past 4 years. It's my 32nd birthday. I'm waiting for Hannah at a coffee shop right now. A few days ago, Hannah gave me a call. She said, "There's someone I want you to meet." I understand that you are wondering, what is she saying, the one who handed over the divorce papers? But no, the divorce is entirely my fault. Hannah, you did nothing wrong, I replied. That is untrue, Mill. Could we just get together once? I really want you to meet this person, she said. Do you want me to meet someone I'm acquainted with? You know him, but also you don't. Despite not knowing what she meant, I went to meet him. I've always wanted to give Hannah my sincere apologies. This could be my last opportunity. The coffee shop's antique entrance chime tolled. Hannah and her father, George, were there as I turned to face the entryway. I waved a little to Hannah, and she approached. George was the person Mom wished for me to meet. As she mentioned, you know them, but also you don't. I was interested to discover what kind of person he would be. Hannah continued to have an exquisite appearance. It was a far cry from how exhausted I've grown over the last 4 years. Kevin, a long time has passed. It appears that you have shed some pounds. Are you occupied at work? I know. I quit my old job. What? Yes, I understand. Hannah graciously did not inquire further after learning that I had resigned from my work, as though she had an inkling as to what was going on. Miss, who is this gentleman over here? I was momentarily unable to identify the speaker. George was the only person in front of me, but even though we've known each other since we were young, there's no way he could have forgotten to address Hannah as Miss and me as this gentleman. He's not the type to purposefully say things in the incorrect way in public. That's why I couldn't figure it out. My dad, you see, he has dementia, Hannah remarked as she looked down, her eyes saddening. Dementia. About course, I had heard about it before, but I didn't really get it until then. However, I sensed that George was not quite right. His smile never left his face. Although he was constantly happy, he had a respectable demeanor in the past. He simply appears to be a cheerful old man these days, always smiling. In actuality, I had been observing that he was growing increasingly forgetful even prior to the divorce. Gradually, after the divorce, dementia symptoms started to show. Sometimes he doesn't recognize me the way he used to, Hannah said, sighing. Thus, there were indications prior to the divorce. I was unable to contain my dismay at my benefactor's transformation. Why didn't you tell me? I wanted to, but work kept you extremely busy. I had assumed that we could have a casual conversation about it at a birthday party or something. Correct. We didn't have enough time to talk, which was my mistake. I'm sorry you had to move out your stuff bit by bit, didn't you? Yes, I apologize. I was unable to totally rely on you. Piece by piece, I started packing my stuff into a storage container. If you followed through on your promises, I believe I could return home. However, you didn't. After the divorce, I relocated my belongings from the storage container to a studio apartment because you seldom came home early. If only I had fulfilled my word, maybe Hannah, and I would still be a family. I felt horrible for losing something so priceless. I really apologize for those moments. I lost motivation after the divorce and left my job. Work used to seem like everything to me. Hannah, I wasn't really listening to you. Now it's all right. As a housewife, I've also been holding back and not expressing my emotions. I ought to have come to you with my demands and grievances. When we were younger, we used to say anything to each other. When did we stop communicating with one another, I wonder? The words of Hannah struck my heart. After growing up as friends, we were married to one another. Despite our long-standing friendship, nothing worked out. I shouldn't have taken communication for granted just because we were married and childhood friends. I felt a great deal of guilt and regret. Then there was an abrupt stop. Kevin and Hannah, should we head to the gym? George quickly offered. I've got some candies for you too. I've been smiling softly. Hannah was surprised and quickly told me, You see, Dad, his memory isn't always consistent. He occasionally remembers and occasionally forgets, but recently, he started recalling your name, Kevin, and a lot of our early stories. Because of his dementia, he frequently becomes irate, agrees, and has tantrums when gazing at photo albums. But he's very at ease when he thinks of you, Kevin. Oh, is that why you wanted me to meet him today? Hannah nodded at what I said. My dad's heart is deteriorating. He has made frequent trips to and from the hospital. He'll be admitted to a dementia-focused hospital when a spot opens up, but I won't be able to see him as frequently as I do now. So, why don't you speak with him with me till he checks into the hospital? While he is still able to remember, I want to let him peacefully savor his memories. Hannah had proposed suddenly, and I had run out of things to say. However, Hannah requested it, and more significantly, I wanted to do everything in my power to let George, my benefactor, comfortably relive his memories. What about Kevin and Hannah, then? Are you guys going outside to play once more? George remarked, unable to recognize Hannah and me in front of him. You two are always full of energy. However, he exuded happiness as he spoke about our early years. Please, there may still be some time left. I apologize for any inconvenience the divorce may have given you. There's nothing I can do to help him. I want to help my father now because of this. What exactly should I do? I inquired. Why don't we get together again and have this kind of tea? We might occasionally visit the gym. Dad might be pleased if we take him to elementary school because he frequently mentions that he needs to pick up Hannah and Kevin. We really weren't a nice married couple, but as children, we were closer to one another. When the three of us were spending time together, I wanted to bring those moments back. If we do that, I believe Dad will remember more. I want him to cherish his experiences. Hannah sounded quite earnest. Would I be able to pull it off? I didn't love Hannah enough. I really am a loser. I sincerely hope that I won't tarnish George's memory. Let's attempt to recall our childhood emotions. We were certainly attentive of one another. Should we give it another go? My heart was made at Hannah's words. I made the most of my time with Hannah and George for the next 6 months, until a room in a specialized dementia facility became available. George would sometimes lose his temper or become delirious, but he would always remain calm when we would open the picture album or when Hannah and I would go to the locations from our recollections. Though it didn't really matter, there were moments when he appeared to recognize us and moments when he didn't. It was sufficient for George to be able to savor his memories. Compared to when we were married, Hannah and I spoke a lot more. We chuckle now at how odd it seems that we weren't this talkative when we were married. George was admitted to a specialist dementia facility in Arizona 6 months after I began visiting George and Hannah. Due to his weak heart, the hospital located outside of our state was the only choice. Though certainly not as regularly as we used to, we could still visit him. The employees of the facility came to pick him up in their vehicle on the day of his departure. Hannah was crying, but George was smiling, not quite realizing what was happening. She screamed out, "Dad, take care," but George only grinned silently. But after he entered the vehicle and the attendant pulled down the window, George observed Hannah and me and remarked, "You two take good care of each other." He said those exact words to us right after our marriage. We were unable to determine if he recognized us or just remembered the wedding. However, Hannah and I responded as a team, "We will," just as we had at the wedding. We said our goodbyes with a wave till the George carrying vehicle was out of sight. George was admitted to the hospital 1 month ago. There has been oscillation in his state. Next week, we're going to see George together. Hannah and I have been getting together a lot since then. Although we probably feel the same way about one another, that doesn't imply we're ready to be married again right now. We wish to avoid making the same errors twice. We don't have to get married in order to be together. We're trying to figure out how to take care of one another and stay together. We're not sure if that's as a married couple or as a couple, but Hannah looks happier today than she did when we were married. I want to prolong this joy for as long as I can.